Hi, so I am here because I want to talk about chronic illnesses, which is just such a fun topic to talk about, right? So I want to talk about chronic illnesses because I feel like it's a topic that isn't always talked about. I see a lot of conversation lately about accessibility and disability in the world, which is fantastic. And that is something that 100% needs to be addressed in our media and in our everyday conversations. I feel like chronic illnesses need to be a part of that too, because oftentimes they can go hand in hand with one another. And surprisingly, a lot more of the population lives with chronic illnesses than you might think. So I live with a chronic illness called endometriosis. It is an illness that affects about 1 in 10 people who have a uterus of childbearing age. It's when the lining of the uterus or the endometrial cells grow in other parts of the body, and it's extremely painful. It can be really debilitating. People, can lose the ability to work, lose the ability to function, lose the ability to take care of themselves. And it's a really nasty disease, and it can take away a lot of opportunities from those who suffer with it. We're not alone. There are a lot of other chronic illnesses out there that aren't talked about. And I think that opening up a dialogue is extremely important to just get our foot in the door talking about these illnesses and normalizing taking care of ourselves. So according to the CDC, a chronic illness is any illness that lasts from about 1 year or more. Other sources say that a chronic illness is anything that lasts for over 3 months. It's really subjective, but it's pretty much just a long-term illness, and it can be curable or it can be incurable. As long as it lasts for a certain amount of time, it's classified as a chronic illness. These illnesses can include cancer, asthma, diabetes, heart disease, or what I have, endometriosis. And about 40% of the United States population is chronically ill. And about 75% of our healthcare costs are of those who have chronic illnesses, which is incredibly high. About $1.3 trillion a year are spent in the US on healthcare from the chronically ill. It is a very high-priced market in the US, and it unfairly skews to those with chronic illnesses. And those with chronic illnesses often come from low-income backgrounds. So how is it fair that our healthcare costs are so high when such a large population is so sick that they need this help? So the 5 most expensive illnesses to have in the United States are heart disease, stroke, cancer, pulmonary conditions, and mental illness, which is really sad because those are things that we hear in our everyday vocabularies. Most of us know people who have mental illness, even if it's mild. Most of us may know people who have heart conditions or have a history of cancer in our families. Or, they may have asthma, which is a very common chronic illness. And the fact that these are taxed so high is so unfair, especially because the people that deal with these illnesses may be from low-income situations. And with the state of the economy in the US, we see low-income households more and more often because the middle class is disappearing. So why don't we talk about chronic illnesses more often? Which is a really good question. For many, chronic illnesses don't really affect their day-to-day too much. Even if they do see doctors on the regular, their chronic illness may be well controlled with medication and it's not causing them harm. It just needs to be monitored. Like for me, I have asthma and that doesn't really hinder my day-to-day. All it does is makes me carry an inhaler wherever I go. And for someone who has a heart condition, it may be really well managed with medication and it may not affect their day-to-day. And for many, chronic illnesses do affect their day-to-day. It may inhibit their ability to work, to be a productive member of society. It may inhibit their ability to do functions around the house by themselves, like cooking a meal or going to the bathroom. We're a culture that really normalizes the workaholic lifestyle. We don't talk about those who do need to take care of themselves. We don't talk about those that may need a few extra days off of work because they are sick. And it's not just, I have the flu, it's I am always sick. And that's not something that people normally think about. A lot of people with chronic illnesses need to take days, weeks, maybe months to take care of themselves. And that's not normalized in our culture. So those with chronic illnesses may feel undervalued, or they may feel worthless, because we are taught as a society that if you are not out in the world working, contributing to the maximum level, then you're not worth it, which is really sad. We need to erase that mindset from our narrative and normalize a culture that promotes, yes, working and pursuing your dreams and passions, but also taking care of yourself, because that is just as important. Nobody is effective if they are lying in bed in pain or lying in bed sick. That's just not the reality of it. And those who are chronically ill also get really weird remarks from other people. If you bring it up in conversation, people will just be like, well, have you tried yoga? Or have you tried a vegan diet? Or my personal favorite, my knee really hurt for 3 days 10 years ago, and I ate some berries and now it's fine. Have you tried that? No, I haven't tried that, but I doubt that it'll work because I eat berries a lot and my pain is still there. And a lot of the times people are blamed for their illnesses. I know for me, I have been blamed by a number of people for my illness. I have been told that, it's my fault for having trauma, or it's my fault that I did this one thing 5 years ago and that's why I have so much pain, or because I didn't take care of myself when I was younger, which I did. It is a blame game a lot of the times with a lot of people. And I don't understand why they have the audacity to walk up to someone who is sick and blame them for it. It doesn't make any sense. There are not a lot of situations where it is the person's fault that they got sick. And even if it is, even if it's something that they did do, like lack of diet or exercise, you still shouldn't blame somebody for that. It's still a part of their life, it's still debilitating, and we need to stop the blame game. So what can we do differently? For starters, we can talk about it. We can talk about chronic illnesses and we can normalize it. And that goes the same way with the conversation surrounding accessibility and disability. We need to talk more about these subjects to normalize them into our society so people recognize that this is a big part of a lot of people's lives. It's not just a tiny percentage of the population. And even if it was, it's still important. Another thing that we could do is the US could, adopt a universal healthcare protocol. Just saying. So the people who are chronically ill don't go into thousands and thousands of dollars of debt just because they're sick and it's not their fault. Just a thought. Go out and vote. Another thing is that workplaces can adopt a more flexible use of sick time. A lot of workplaces have a fixed amount of sick time, or you have to accrue sick time. And if you're a new employee, you don't get that sick time, or you get less than average. And for those who are chronically ill going into these jobs, that doesn't leave us a lot of room to be sick. And we can't control when our illness flares up. I can't control the days that I'm stuck in bed. I don't plan those. And so workplaces can start recognizing that chronic illnesses are way more prevalent, and workplaces can start recognizing and realizing these illnesses and start a plan to work with employees who may be chronically ill. and adopt better sick leave in the US. So we really just need to open up a conversation. We really need to talk about these illnesses. We need to talk about accessibility. We need to talk about those who are undervalued in our society because they need to take care of themselves. We need this open dialogue and discussion because without it, we can't get anywhere. So really, it comes down to just opening up a discussion, talking about those who have illnesses that hinder their everyday life, talk about those who need accessibility accommodations, talk about those with disabilities, and normalize it. We need to normalize those who aren't the workaholic, work 80 hours a week people, because that's not everybody, and we need representation everywhere, no matter what. So I hope you like this. I don't really know, I've never done this before, but if anyone is watching and anyone likes this, I would be more than happy to open up more conversations and, expand the narrative, expand the dialogue surrounding these issues in the US and potentially worldwide, because this is a worldwide issue. These illnesses and disabilities don't affect people just in the United States. It affects everybody and anybody, and they don't discriminate. So yeah, if you like this, let me know, and maybe I'll talk more about it. And if you hated it, then I won't talk more about it.